All right, today we're going to build a fortress. But, not with actual bricks and mortar. We're going to use strategy, planning, and some serious foresight to put together an information security program that can actually stand up to an attack. So, let's get into it. So, let's be real. Your company probably has all the bells and whistles. Firewalls, antivirus, maybe even some fancy detection systems. You should be totally locked down, right? But somehow, we keep hearing about breaches. What's the missing piece here? Well, here's the thing. All that technology, it's just a tool. It's not the solution itself. Your strongest, most unbreakable defense isn't a piece of software. It's the plan. It's the blueprint you design for your fortress that really, truly makes the difference. So, if we're going to build a fortress that lasts, we first have to understand why so many of them just crumble. We need to look at the common weak spots, the cracks in the armor that cause even well-funded security programs to fail. And just take a look at this list. You'll notice something pretty fast. Most of these challenges aren't really technical, are they? They're about people, money, and politics. Things like tight budgets, not having enough skilled staff, a company culture that just doesn't take security seriously, and a real lack of support from leadership. Those are the real vulnerabilities. So, how do we start fixing this stuff? Well, let's try to reframe the problem. Say your security program feels totally disconnected from what the business is actually trying to achieve. That's a symptom. The solution isn't some new tool, it's just talking. It's about having a real ongoing conversation between the security folks and the business leaders, making sure everyone's pulling in the same direction. Or here's another classic one. You feel like your team is totally underwater, but just asking for more people never seems to work. The solution? You've got to treat it like a data problem. Use workload management to show, with actual numbers, how much work there is versus what your team can realistically handle. You have to make your case with cold, hard evidence. Okay, so now that we know the common pitfalls to avoid, it's time to start building. But, you can't just build a fortress on shaky ground. The very first step is to survey the land, to get a perfect understanding of exactly what it is you're trying to protect. And this all starts with something called asset classification. The idea is super simple. You can't protect what you don't even know you have. It's all about making a complete inventory of all your information, figuring out where it all lives, who officially owns it, and who's responsible for taking care of it day to day. And to do that right, you need to answer some really specific questions. It's not enough to just say, yeah, we have customer data. You need a process. How are you going to find it all? What's the system for deciding if it's top secret, confidential, or public? And what are the strict rules for how it's labeled, handled, and moved around? Now, here's the good news. You don't have to invent all of this from scratch. There are proven blueprints, we call them frameworks, that you can use. Think of them as different architectural styles for your fortress. For instance, the NIST cybersecurity framework is a fantastic set of guidelines that helps companies figure out their most critical systems and then apply the right controls to protect them. These frameworks give you a structure to follow so you're not just making it up as you go. All right, once you've picked a framework, your architectural style, it's time to draft the official blueprints for our fortress. In our world, these are your policies and standards. These are the formal, written-down rules that absolutely everyone has to follow. But what happens when someone needs to break a rule for a legitimate reason? You can't just have a free-for-all. You need a formal process for that, too. Policy exceptions need to be documented, the risk has to be formally accepted by someone in charge, and this is crucial, it has to be temporary. They need an expiration date. No forever exceptions allowed. Okay, let's move on to the really cool part, building the actual defenses. This is where all those abstract plans and policies turn into concrete walls, gates, and watchtowers that are going to protect our valuable assets. See, your defenses are made up with things called controls, and they basically come in 4 main flavors. To be really secure, you need a mix of all 4. Preventative controls are your walls and locked gates. Think of a firewall stopping an attack before it even starts. Detective controls are your alarms and lookouts, like software that screams when it sees something suspicious. Corrective controls are your emergency repair crew, ready to restore from a backup after something bad happens. And finally, deterrent controls are the big beware of dog signs, the warning banners that tell attackers to just go somewhere else. Now, whenever you possibly can, you want your defenses to be automated, because automated controls are just way harder for people to mess up or bypass. And good automation is built on 4 core principles. First, ironclad access control. Second, making sure systems are built for secure failure, meaning they lock down, not open up when something goes wrong. Third, the principle of least privilege, giving people the absolute bare minimum access they need to do their job, and nothing more. And fourth, compartmentalizing, so a fire in one room doesn't burn down the whole house. But, and this is a really big but, automation is not always the answer. Sometimes a manual process is actually better. An automated system might spit out a million alerts that nobody looks at, but one smart analyst taking detailed notes might provide much better proof that a control is actually working. The goal isn't just automation for automation's sake, it's effectiveness. So you've built your fortress. It looks great, but how do you really know if it's strong? You have to measure it. Think of it like constantly tapping on the walls, looking for cracks. A defense you can't measure is basically a defense you can't trust. You're just guessing. And hey, not just any old measurement will do. Good metrics are SMART. It's a handy acronym. They need to be specific, so you know exactly what you're tracking, measurable, so you can put a number to it, attainable, meaning it's actually possible to achieve, relevant, so it actually matters to the business, and timely, so you get the info when you can still do something about it. If your metric misses any of those, it's probably not helping you make smart decisions. And while we're on the topic of measuring, don't forget to measure the true cost of things. That sticker price for a new security tool, yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg. You also have to factor in all the hidden costs, like paying people to manage it, training, maintenance, monitoring. It all adds up. You have to know the full cost to know if your investment is really paying off. You know, we've spent a lot of time talking about plans and technology and policies, but a fortress, no matter how well it's designed, is only as strong as the people who guard it. The human element is absolutely the most critical, and honestly, the most overlooked part of the whole thing. This one sentence pretty much says it all, doesn't it? You can have the best, most expensive technology in the world, but all of it can be completely undone by one person making one simple mistake. And that's exactly why training, awareness, and building a strong security culture are so unbelievably important. And this doesn't just apply to your employees. It extends to your partners too. When you work with other companies, you have to build ways to hold them accountable into your contracts. The two big ones are the right to inspect, which is kind of like a surprise pop quiz that keeps them on their toes, and the right to audit, which is more like a formal, deep dive final exam to make sure their controls are really working as advertised. And that really brings us to our final thought here. Building the fortress is just step one. Manning it with trained people is step two. But the ultimate challenge, the one that never ends, is maintaining a constant state of vigilance. Security isn't a project with a finish line. It's a culture you have to build, a process you're always tweaking, and a commitment that you have to renew every single day. So the real question is, how will you stay vigilant?